I'll never forget the evidence Tom showed me that Tuesday morning: hotel receipts, text messages, and proof that my husband and my best friend of 20 years had been betraying me for over a year. But let me back up. Because to understand how completely I was blindsided, you need to know what my life looked like before everything shattered. My name is Sarah Miller, and for 47 years, I thought I knew exactly who I was. I'm an ER doctor at County General Hospital, the kind of physician who thrives on the chaos of trauma bays and the satisfaction of saving lives at 3 in the morning. My husband Marcus and I had been together since high school, that rare couple everyone envied. High school sweethearts who actually made it. 18 years of marriage. 2 incredible kids, Emma, 16, with her father's dark eyes and my stubborn determination, and Jake, 14, all long limbs and gentle humor. We lived in a 4-bedroom colonial in the suburbs with the white picket fence and the golden retriever. Literally. Her name was Bella, and she'd sleep at the foot of our bed every night, her soft snoring the soundtrack to our peaceful life. Marcus was a financial advisor, successful, stable, the kind of man who remembered anniversaries and coached Jake's soccer team. On Sunday mornings, he'd make his famous blueberry pancakes while I'd sit at the kitchen island in my oversized sweater, nursing coffee and watching him flip batter with the practiced ease of a man comfortable in his own home. The kids would stumble down in their pajamas, and we'd eat together, syrup sticky and laughing, before I'd head off for my weekend shift. My schedule was brutal, 3 to 4 night shifts per week, 12-hour rotations that left me exhausted but fulfilled. Marcus always said he understood. "You're saving lives, babe," he'd tell me, kissing my forehead as I left for the hospital at 6 p.m. "We'll hold down the fort." And they did. Or so I thought. 6 months ago, my mother Margaret moved in with us after a mild stroke left her needing occasional monitoring. At 73, she was mostly independent, sharp as ever, just a little unsteady on her feet. I'd installed a nanny cam in the living room and kitchen area, just to check on her during my shifts. "Mom, it's for my peace of mind," I'd told her, setting up the discreet camera on the bookshelf. She'd rolled her eyes but smiled. She understood. I was her daughter, after all. We both had that need to care for people, to protect them. The camera was motion activated, stored footage in the cloud. I'd check it occasionally on my breaks at the hospital, watching Mom read her mystery novels or putter around making tea. It was comforting, seeing her safe in our home. Marcus and Diane both helped with Mom. Diane especially. Diane Morrison. My best friend of 20 years. God, even now, typing her name makes my chest tighten. Diane and I met in college, 2 girls in the same freshman dorm who bonded over terrible cafeteria food and even worse boyfriends. She was there when I met Marcus at that football game sophomore year. She was my maid of honor when we got married. She held my hand in the delivery room when Emma was born because Marcus was stuck in traffic and someone needed to be there. For 2 decades, Diane was my person. Late-night phone calls about everything and nothing. Shopping trips where we'd try on ridiculous outfits and laugh until we cried. The kind of friendship where you don't need to explain yourself because the other person already knows. Diane was married to Tom, Marcus's college roommate and best friend. Tom was this big, gentle teddy bear of a man who worked in software sales and told dad jokes that made everyone groan. They had 3 kids, Michael, 10, Sophie, 8, and little Grace, 6. The 4 of us were family. Real family, the kind you choose. We vacationed together every summer, beach house rentals where our kids would build sandcastles while we'd sip wine and watch the sunset. We had a standing New Year's Eve tradition, dinner at our house, champagne at midnight, kids eventually passing out in sleeping bags in the living room while the adults played cards and talked about our dreams for the coming year. Diane was a stay-at-home mom, and I'd always sensed she admired my career. "I don't know how you do it, Sarah," she'd say, watching me leave for another night shift. "Saving lives while raising kids. You're superwoman." I'd laugh it off. "You're raising 3 humans into decent people, D. That's the real heroism." She'd smile, but looking back now, I can see something else in her eyes. Something I missed completely. Envy. Have you ever realized too late that someone close to you was jealous of your life? That their compliments were hiding resentment? If this story is resonating with you, please subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. You're not alone in this. That Tuesday morning, Tom appeared at the hospital during my shift, shaking, pale, with a manila envelope clutched in his trembling hands. "Sarah," he said, his voice breaking. "I need to show you something. About Diane and Marcus." And in that moment, everything I thought I knew about my life, about love, about friendship, about trust, died in an instant. Tom appeared in the ER staff hallway at 6:30 in the morning, right as I was finishing a brutal 12-hour shift. I'd just lost a 19-year-old motorcycle accident victim on the table, and I was still in my blood-stained scrubs, exhausted and emotionally drained. When I saw Tom standing there, trembling like a leaf, my first thought was that someone had died. "Tom." I pulled off my surgical cap, my heart already racing. "What's wrong? Are the kids okay? Is Diane?" "It's Diane and Marcus." His voice cracked, and fresh tears spilled down his cheeks. This 6'2" man who'd once carried a deer he'd hunted over his shoulders looked like he might collapse. "Sarah, I'm so sorry. I'm so fucking sorry." The hallway tilted. I grabbed his arm to steady myself, or maybe to steady him. "What are you talking about?" He thrust a manila envelope at me with shaking hands. "They've been having an affair. For over a year." The words didn't compute. I stared at the envelope like it was something alien, something that couldn't possibly be real. "That's insane," I heard myself say. "Tom, you're upset about something, but that's not, they wouldn't." "Open it." His voice was hollow. "Please. Just open it." My hands moved on autopilot, pulling out the contents. Hotel receipts. Dozens of them. The Riverside Inn, the Grand Plaza, the Meridian Suites. All charged to Marcus's credit card. All on dates I recognized immediately because they were burned into my brain, my night shift schedule. Every single receipt was from a night I'd been at the hospital saving lives. "This doesn't mean," I started, but Tom pulled out his phone. "Read the texts, Sarah." He'd already pulled them up. Screenshots of messages between a number saved as client services in Marcus's phone and Diane's number. But these weren't client services messages. "Marcus, can't wait until she leaves for her shift tonight. I need you. Diane, your bed is so much more comfortable than the hotel. And the risk makes it hotter. Marcus, I love you. God, I've always loved you. Since college. Diane, Tom suspects nothing. Sarah's too busy saving lives to notice us saving each other." The phone slipped from my hands. Tom caught it, but I was already moving, stumbling toward the staff bathroom. I barely made it to the stall before I vomited, my body purging everything inside me as if it could somehow expel the poison of what I'd just learned. I sat on the cold tile floor in my bloody scrubs, my back against the metal stall, and sobbed. Great, heaving gasps that felt like they were tearing me apart from the inside. "Your bed is so much more comfortable than the hotel." They'd been in my bed. In my home. While I was intubating patients and performing CPR and holding the hands of dying strangers, my husband and my best friend were fucking in my bed. I don't know how long I sat there. Eventually, Tom knocked softly on the door. "Sarah? I need you to come out. There's more." "More? How could there possibly be more?" I splashed water on my face, avoiding my reflection in the mirror. I couldn't look at myself, couldn't look at the woman who'd been so stupid, so blind, so pathetically trusting. In the hallway, Tom showed me credit card statements. Jewelry purchases, $6,400 at Tiffany's. I'd never received jewelry from Marcus. Romantic dinners at restaurants we'd never been to together. Weekend trips to wine country that Marcus had claimed were golf weekends with the guys. "How long have you known?" My voice sounded strange, distant, like it belonged to someone else. 2 weeks. I suspected when Diane started acting weird, coming home late, new perfume, constantly on her phone. I checked our phone records and saw thousands of texts to an unknown number. It was Marcus using a burner phone. 2 weeks? I looked at him, and something sharp pierced through my shock. You've known for 2 weeks and you're just telling me now? I was gathering evidence, Tom said quietly. Sarah, if we're going to do this, if we're going to end these marriages, we need to be smart. We need to destroy them legally, not just emotionally. Destroy them legally. Something clicked in my brain, the same way it did in the ER when a diagnosis suddenly became clear. Tom was right. I couldn't just confront them in some emotional explosion. I needed to be strategic. Calculated. I needed to approach this the way I approached a complex trauma case: assess, plan, execute. You said there's more, I managed. Tom's jaw tightened. Diane's pregnant. 11 weeks. The floor dropped out from under me again. Tom. She says it's mine. We had sex once about 3 months ago. She initiated it out of nowhere, which makes sense now. She was trying to create cover. He paused, his voice breaking. But the timeline. Sarah, it could easily be Marcus's baby. Oh God. I thought about my kids. About Emma and Jake, who loved their Aunt Diane, and Uncle Tom, who played with their cousins every weekend, who thought our blended families were unbreakable. I thought about the college funds Marcus and I had been building for 18 years. I thought about every night shift I'd worked, every life I'd saved, every sacrifice I'd made for our family. And then I stopped thinking and started planning. You said we need to be smart, I said, my voice suddenly steady. Do you have a lawyer? Tom nodded. I've already had a consultation. She's one of the best divorce attorneys in the state. Specializes in high-asset cases with infidelity. Call her, I said. Tell her she has 2 clients now. That's when I stopped being the heartbroken wife and became something else entirely. A woman with nothing left to lose and everything to fight for. Tom's lawyer was named Margaret Rivera, and she had the kind of sharp, calculating eyes that told me she'd seen every dirty trick in the divorce playbook. We met in her office that same afternoon. I'd called in sick for the first time in 12 years, unable to imagine facing another patient when my own life was hemorrhaging. Dr. Miller, Margaret said, sliding a legal pad across her mahogany desk. Tom has filled me in on the basics. But I need you to tell me everything you know, everything you suspect, and anything that might be relevant. Don't filter. Don't protect anyone. This is war, and I need ammunition. I told her about the texts, the hotel receipts, the timeline. I told her about Diane's pregnancy and my suspicion that Marcus was the father. I mentioned my mother living with us, the nanny cam I'd installed. Margaret's pen stopped mid-sentence. Wait. You have a nanny cam? In your home? Is it still recording? Yes. It's motion activated, saves everything to cloud storage. I check it occasionally to see how Mom's doing during my shifts. And Marcus and Diane both knew about this camera? They knew about Mom needing monitoring, but I don't think they knew exactly where the camera was. It's pretty discreet, looks like a book on the shelf. Margaret's smile was predatory. Dr. Miller, I need you to give me access to that footage immediately. Don't watch it yourself. Let me review it first with our investigator. 2 days later, Margaret called me back to her office. Her expression told me everything before she said a word. Sarah, may I call you Sarah? She waited for my nod. You need to prepare yourself. What I'm about to show you is going to be extremely difficult to watch. She turned her laptop screen toward me. The footage was from my living room, date stamped 3 weeks earlier. One of my night shifts. Marcus and Diane on my couch. Kissing. His hands in her hair, her legs wrapped around his waist. Then the footage jumped, motion activated, so it only captured when they moved. The next clip showed them walking toward the hallway. Toward my bedroom. We have 17 separate incidents captured over the past 6 months, Margaret said gently. Multiple angles, living room, kitchen. The audio is particularly damning. She played another clip. I could hear their voices clearly. Diane, God, I've wanted this for so long. Since college, Marcus. I've been in love with you since before Sarah even existed in your life. Marcus, she doesn't appreciate what she has. Always at that fucking hospital. You make me feel alive again. Diane, when we're together, it's like the world makes sense. She doesn't deserve you. She doesn't deserve any of this. I watched myself become a ghost in my own home. Every clip showed them more comfortable, more brazen. In one, they were cooking dinner in my kitchen, laughing and drinking wine like a couple playing house. In another, Diane was wearing my bathrobe. My bathrobe. There's more, Margaret said, closing the laptop. We hired a forensic accountant to look at your joint finances. Sarah, Marcus has been systematically draining your accounts. She handed me a preliminary report. The numbers blurred as tears filled my eyes, but certain figures stood out like neon signs. $67,000 withdrawn from children's 529 college accounts. $43,000 depleted from joint emergency savings. $28,000 in credit card charges, hotels, jewelry, restaurants, trips. He'd stolen from our children. From Emma's dream of becoming a doctor like me. From Jake's future. He'd taken the money we'd saved through my brutal night shifts and his careful investments and blown it all on his affair. The jewelry purchases? I whispered. Cross-referenced with hotel security footage. He gave it all to Diane. 3 separate occasions, her birthday, Valentine's Day, and what appears to be their anniversary of when the affair started. I thought I'd cried all my tears in that hospital bathroom, but I was wrong. Fresh sobs tore through me, my chest heaving with the weight of so much betrayal. Have you ever discovered that everything you believed about your life was a lie? That the people you trusted most were conspiring behind your back to destroy you? Drop a comment below. I promise you, you're not alone in this pain. Sarah. Margaret's voice cut through my breakdown. I know this is devastating. But here's what they don't know, we have everything. The footage. The financial records. The text messages. They think they've been clever, but they've left a trail of evidence that any judge will see clearly. What about Diane's pregnancy? I managed. We'll subpoena medical records to establish conception dates. If the baby is Marcus's, and I suspect it is based on the timeline, he'll be liable for child support for 2 families while paying you spousal support and reimbursing the stolen funds. Financially, he'll be destroyed. Over the next week, the discoveries kept coming, each one worse than the last. The forensic accountant found an additional $15,000 withdrawn from our joint investment account, money I didn't even know he'd accessed. Tom's investigator discovered that Marcus had used his company credit card for some affair expenses, falsifying expense reports to claim they were client entertainment. Most devastating of all, Tom's lawyer uncovered that Diane had been systematically poisoning my reputation in our social circle. Mutual friends came forward with screenshots of group chats where Diane had portrayed me as a neglectful wife and mother, an absentee friend, someone obsessed with her career to the point of ignoring her family. She'd been building a narrative for months, laying the groundwork so that when the affair came out, people would understand why poor Marcus had strayed from his workaholic, emotionally absent wife. I'd lost a patient on my table, and she'd texted our book club, Sarah's at work again. Doesn't even know Marcus is home alone with the kids for the 3rd night this week. I actually feel sorry for him. I'd missed a birthday brunch because of an emergency surgery, and she'd posted in our neighborhood Facebook group, some people's careers always come first, I guess. Family used to mean something. She'd been destroying me slowly, methodically, while smiling to my face and sleeping in my bed. I need to tell the kids, I told Margaret during one of our strategy sessions. They're asking questions. Marcus has been working late, so much that Emma's starting to notice. Tell them the age-appropriate version, Margaret advised. Your husband made choices that hurt your family. Nothing more specific unless they ask directly. That night, I sat Emma and Jake down in our living room, the same room where that camera had captured so much betrayal. Dad and I are separating, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. He made some choices that hurt our family, and we can't stay married. Emma's face went pale. At 16, she was old enough to understand subtext. Is it Aunt Diane? My heart stopped. What? I saw Dad's car at her house one night around midnight. I was coming home from studying at Riley's house, and I saw it parked in her driveway. Tom's car wasn't there. She looked at me with eyes far too old for her age. I didn't want to believe it, but... Mom, is Dad cheating with Aunt Diane? Jake started crying. No. No, that's not true. Aunt Diane wouldn't. Yes, I said quietly. She would. And she did. The sound Jake made, this wounded, animal keen, nearly broke me. But I held him while Emma sat frozen, her face a mask of fury I'd never seen before. I hate him, Emma whispered. I hate them both. You don't have to hate anyone, I said, though God knows I was struggling with that myself. But you're allowed to be angry. You're allowed to feel betrayed. What they did was wrong, and it hurt all of us. That night, after the kids finally fell asleep in their rooms, I sat alone in my kitchen, the kitchen where Marcus and Diane had cooked dinner together, drunk wine, played house with my life, and I made a decision. They wanted to destroy me? Fine. But I was about to show them what happened when you betrayed someone who'd spent 20 years learning how to stay calm under pressure, how to make life or death decisions, and how to systematically solve complex problems. I wasn't just going to survive this. I was going to make them pay for every single lie, every stolen dollar, every moment they'd spent mocking me while I saved lives. Margaret had said this was war. She had no idea how right she was. And I was about to prove that in war, the most dangerous opponent is the one who has nothing left to lose. 3 nights after I told the kids, my phone exploded at 2:47 a.m. I was lying awake in the guest room. I couldn't sleep in my bedroom anymore, not after watching that footage, when the text notifications started pinging in rapid succession. 23 messages over the course of 40 minutes, all from Diane. I grabbed my phone, my hands shaking as I read. Diane, Sarah, I'm so sorry. Diane, you don't understand what it's like. Diane, I always wanted your life, Sarah. The doctor. The perfect husband. The respect. Diane, everyone looks at you like you're a hero, and what am I? Just a MOM. Diane, you don't deserve him. You're never there. I made him happy when you couldn't. Diane, I've been in love with Marcus since college. Since before you even met him. You stole him from me first. Diane, your mom doesn't even notice when we fuck in your house, lol, she just sits there reading. Diane, that baby? Probably his. Tom's practically sterile anyway, we tried for years for Grace. Diane, you were so easy to fool, Sarah. So trusting. So stupid. Diane, I deserve to be happy too. Why do you get everything? Diane, the worst part? Marcus says he still loves you. Even after everything. Pathetic. Diane, I hate you. I've always hated you. Perfect Sarah with her perfect life. Diane, this baby is going to have your husband's last name. How does that feel? Diane, you'll never prove anything. No one will believe you over me. The messages kept coming, each one more unhinged than the last. She was clearly drunk, maybe mixing alcohol with something else. The spelling got worse, the thoughts more scattered and vicious. My first instinct was rage. Pure, white-hot fury that made my vision blur. My second instinct, the one that saved me, was tactical. I screenshot every single message. Then I forwarded them all to Margaret with a message. She just confessed to everything. Premeditation. The affair in my home. The baby's paternity. All of it. Margaret called me at 3:30 a.m. Sarah, this is prosecutorial gold. She just admitted to intentional, premeditated alienation of affection, long-term planning of the affair, that the baby is likely Marcus's elder abuse, having relations in your home while your vulnerable mother was present, malicious intent and planning. This destroys any defense they might have had. These texts prove this wasn't some moment of weakness or it just happened affair. This was calculated, intentional, and cruel. Can we use them in court? Absolutely. She sent them to you voluntarily. They're admissible as party admissions. Sarah, she just handed us the case on a silver platter. The next morning, I met with Margaret and showed her something else I'd been working on. Since Tom first told me about the affair, I'd been documenting everything in a leather journal, dates, times, financial discrepancies I'd noticed over the past year but dismissed. February 14th, Marcus said he was working late on a client emergency. Our credit card statement showed a $340 charge at the Riverside in that same night. March 22nd, found unfamiliar perfume scent on Marcus's jacket. He said a female client hugged him after closing a big deal. April 3rd, Marcus showered immediately after coming home from golf, at 9 p.m., after it was dark. May 16th, $2,400 jewelry purchase I never received. Marcus said it was a gift for a client's milestone anniversary. You kept records? Margaret looked impressed. I'm a doctor. We document everything. I paused. I guess some part of me knew something was wrong. I just didn't want to believe it. If you've ever ignored red flags because you didn't want to believe someone you loved could betray you, drop a comment below. Sometimes our instincts know the truth before our hearts are ready to accept it. That afternoon, Margaret arranged a controlled confrontation. Marcus had been staying at a hotel since Tom confronted him, but his lawyer had agreed to a meeting at Margaret's office to discuss settlement terms. I wore my white coat from the hospital, a deliberate choice. A reminder of who I was, what I did, what I'd sacrificed while he was destroying our family. When Marcus walked in, he looked terrible. He'd lost weight, his eyes were hollow, and there was a tremor in his hands I'd never seen before. For just a second, my heart ached for the boy I'd fallen in love with in high school. Then I remembered him on my couch with Diane, and the ache turned to ice. Sarah, he started, his voice cracking. Please, can we talk? Without the lawyers? No. My voice was steady, clinical. Anything you need to say, you can say in front of counsel. Margaret laid out the preliminary terms we were seeking: 75% of marital assets, full reimbursement of the college funds, significant spousal support, primary custody. Marcus's lawyer, a nervous man named Richard Miller, no relation, looked at the demands and then at his client. Marcus, we should discuss. I'll give you whatever you want, Marcus interrupted, looking directly at me. The house, the money, all of it. Just please, Sarah, I made a mistake. The biggest mistake of my life. A mistake is forgetting to pick up milk, I said coldly. You conducted a systematic affair with my best friend for 14 months. You stole $67,000 from our children's education. You used our home, our bed, while I was saving lives. That's not a mistake, Marcus. That's a choice. Multiple choices, made every single day for over a year. I know. God, I know. Tears were streaming down his face now. But I love you. I've always loved you. Diane was, it was an escape, it wasn't real. You told her you loved her. It's on tape. His face went white. What? Margaret smiled. The nanny cam, Mr. Miller. The one installed to monitor Dr. Miller's elderly mother. It captured quite a bit of footage of you and Ms. Morrison. 17 separate incidents, to be precise. With audio. I watched Marcus's world collapse in real time. His lawyer was frantically whispering to him, but Marcus couldn't hear anything. He was staring at me with this look of absolute devastation. You recorded us? I recorded my living room to monitor my mother's safety, I corrected. What you chose to do in front of that camera is on you. Richard cleared his throat. We need to recess and discuss strategy. There is no strategy, Margaret interrupted. Your client conducted an affair in the marital home, stole marital assets, and it's all documented. We have footage, financial records, and as of last night, a full confession from Ms. Morrison via text message. She slid her phone across the table showing Diane's drunken text rampage. Marcus read them, and something broke in him. She was drunk. She didn't mean. She meant every word, I said. And now it's all evidence. That's when Marcus truly understood, there was no way out. No spin, no excuse, no legal maneuver that would save him. He'd gambled everything on an affair with a woman who just confessed their entire conspiracy in writing. And he'd lost. The forensic accountant's full report arrived on a Friday afternoon, delivered in a thick binder that Margaret laid across her conference table like a prosecutor presenting murder evidence. 147 pages, Margaret said, flipping it open. And every single page is another nail in Marcus's coffin. I sat down, my coffee growing cold as I read the executive summary. Total marital asset dissipation, $153,000. The breakdown was methodical, damning. $67,000 stolen from children's 529 college accounts, Emma's, $38,000, Jake's, $29,000, $43,000 depleted from joint emergency savings, $28,000 in affair-related credit card charges, $15,000 unauthorized withdrawal from joint investment account. But it was the itemized expenses that made my stomach turn. Hotels, $22,000, luxury suites, room service, spa treatments, champagne. Jewelry, $18,000, Tiffany's receipts for 3 separate occasions, a diamond bracelet, pearl earrings, an emerald pendant I'd never seen Diane without in recent months. Restaurants, $12,000, Morton's Steakhouse, the French Room, Chez Philippe, places Marcus had never taken me. Weekend trips, $31,000, Napa Valley, Aspen, Charleston, getaways he'd claimed were golf weekends with clients. Clothing and gifts, $15,000, receipts from Nordstrom, Saks Fifth Avenue, Victoria's Secret. Cash withdrawals, $55,000, ATM withdrawals with no paper trail, likely more gifts and expenses. This is systematic theft, the accountant had written in his professional opinion. The pattern demonstrates intentional depletion of marital assets over 14 months to fund an extramarital relationship. This meets the legal definition of dissipation. Margaret looked up at me. Sarah, with this report alone, we could ask for 80% of the marital assets. Add in the affair footage and Diane's confession texts. We're talking complete financial devastation for Marcus. Good, I said quietly. He devastated our children's futures. Now he gets to experience what that feels like. The depositions began 2 weeks later. Marcus went first. I sat in Margaret's conference room, watching via video feed as he was sworn in. His lawyer had clearly coached him. He was wearing a suit I'd never seen, his hair freshly cut, trying to look like the responsible financial advisor instead of the man who'd stolen from his own children. Margaret's co-counsel, a razor-sharp litigator named James Park, conducted the questioning. Mr. Miller, can you explain this $6,400 charge at Tiffany & Company on February 14th of last year? That was a gift. For your wife's birthday? Your anniversary? No. Then who was it for? Marcus shifted in his seat. A client. It was a business expense. A $6,400 diamond bracelet for a client? James's voice dripped skepticism. That seems excessive. Can you provide the client's name? I don't recall. You don't recall spending $6,400? Mr. Miller, you're a financial advisor. Surely you track your expenses carefully. Silence. Let me help your memory. James slid a photo across the table. This is security footage from Tiffany's that day. Is this you? Yes. And is this Diane Morrison with you, trying on the bracelet? Marcus's face went pale. Yes. So the business client was actually your wife's best friend and your affair partner? I invoke my Fifth Amendment right. This is a civil deposition, Mr. Miller, not a criminal trial. You can refuse to answer, but the judge can draw negative inferences. So let me ask again, did you purchase a $6,400 bracelet for Diane Morrison using marital funds while conducting an affair with her? A long pause. Then, barely audible, yes. They went through every charge. The hotels, the restaurants, the trips. Marcus tried to lie about the Napa Valley weekend, claimed it was actually a financial conference, until James produced hotel security footage showing Marcus and Diane checking in together, luggage in hand, kissing in the lobby. By the end of his deposition, Marcus had admitted to virtually everything. His lawyer looked ready to throw something. Diane's deposition was 3 days later, and it was a masterclass in watching someone self-destruct. She showed up in a black maternity dress, one hand protectively over her barely visible belly, clearly trying to play the vulnerable pregnant woman card. Her lawyer, a young woman named Patricia Reeves who looked severely out of her depth, kept trying to object to questions, but this wasn't a courtroom. Depositions had different rules. Tom's lawyer, Susan Feldman, handled the questioning. She started gently. Ms. Morrison, how long have you known Dr. Sarah Miller? 20 years. Since college. And you've been best friends that entire time? Yes. Diane's voice was small, nothing like the vicious drunk texts she'd sent. You were godmother to her children? Yes. You had keys to her home? Yes. You helped care for her elderly mother? Yes. Susan paused, letting that trust sink in for the record. Then her voice hardened. When did your sexual relationship with Marcus Miller begin? I don't. I can't remember exactly. Let me refresh your memory. Susan pulled out her phone. These are text messages you sent to Dr. Miller 3 weeks ago at 2:47 a.m. Do you remember sending these? Diane's face drained of color as Susan read them aloud, every vicious word entered into the legal record. I've been in love with Marcus since college, since before you even met him. Does that refresh your memory about when this began? I was drunk. I didn't mean. But you did send these texts. Yes, but... And in this text, you state, your mom doesn't even notice when we fuck in your house. Did you have sexual relations with Marcus Miller in the Miller family home? Diane looked at her lawyer desperately. Patricia objected weakly, but Susan continued. Simple yes or no, Ms. Morrison. Yes, Diane whispered. While Dr. Miller's elderly mother, who'd suffered a stroke, was present in the home? She didn't know. That's not what I asked. Was she present? Yes. And you knew Dr. Miller had installed a camera to monitor her mother's safety? Diane's eyes went wide. I didn't know it was recording. So you knew about the camera? I knew about monitoring, but I thought it was just live feed. But you proceeded to have sexual relations in that home anyway, knowing there was surveillance equipment present? The implications were devastating. Diane had knowingly taken the risk, had been reckless with both the affair and the evidence. Susan moved to the financial questions. Ms. Morrison, did Marcus Miller give you gifts during your affair? Some. Jewelry? Yes. Can you estimate the value? I don't know. A few thousand? Susan slid receipts across the table. $18,000 in jewelry. 3 separate occasions. Were you aware these purchases were made using funds from the Miller children's college accounts? Diane's face went white. No. I didn't, he never told me. But you accepted expensive gifts from a married man while having an affair with him? I didn't know where the money came from. Let's talk about your pregnancy. Susan's voice was clinical now. You're currently 16 weeks pregnant, correct? Yes. And you claim your husband Tom is the father? He is. When did you last have sexual relations with Tom? Diane hesitated. I don't remember exactly. Your text messages to Dr. Miller state, that baby? Probably his. Tom's practically sterile anyway. Do you remember writing that? Tears were streaming down Diane's face now. I was drunk. I was angry. I didn't mean it. So you lied in the text message? Yes. Or are you lying now? I'm not lying. Tom is the father. Then you'll have no objection to a court-ordered paternity test after birth? Diane looked at her lawyer, who nodded reluctantly. Fine, Diane spat. Test the baby. You'll see I'm telling the truth. But the panic in her eyes told a different story. The final bombshell came from an unexpected source, Marcus's employer. Margaret called me on a Tuesday evening while I was finishing rounds at the hospital. Her voice had that electric quality I'd come to recognize, the sound of a lawyer who'd just been handed a winning case. Sarah, you need to come to my office. Now. Marcus's employer just contacted us, and what they found. She paused. This changes everything. An hour later, I sat across from Margaret and a serious-looking woman in her 50s who introduced herself as Janet Whitmore, HR Director at Pinnacle Investment Group. Dr. Miller, Janet began, her voice carefully professional, our company launched an internal investigation after receiving information about your husband's personal conduct. What we discovered goes far beyond workplace ethics violations. She opened a folder, and my stomach dropped. Marcus used his company credit card for personal expenses totaling $8,000 over the past year. Hotels, dinners, all of which he falsified on expense reports as client entertainment. Margaret leaned forward. That's embezzlement. It gets worse. Janet's expression was grim. During our audit, we discovered irregularities in one of Marcus's client accounts. Specifically, Tom Morrison's portfolio. The room tilted. Tom's account? Over the past 14 months, Marcus made a series of small withdrawals and transfers from Mr. Morrison's portfolio. Individually, they were small enough to avoid immediate detection, $500 here, $800 there, disguised as administrative fees or investment adjustments. Collectively, they total $12,000. I couldn't breathe. He was stealing from Tom. From his own best friend? To fund the affair with Mr. Morrison's wife, Janet confirmed. We have documentation of every transaction. The transfers correlate directly with hotel charges and gift purchases. Margaret's smile was sharp as a scalpel. That's not just dissipation of marital assets. That's criminal fraud and embezzlement from a client. Janet, what actions is Pinnacle taking? Marcus has been terminated, effective immediately. We're reporting the findings to the SEC and the State Financial Regulatory Board. His financial advisor license will almost certainly be revoked. We're also cooperating fully with law enforcement. The district attorney's office has opened a criminal investigation. Criminal charges? My voice came out strangled. Wire fraud, embezzlement, potentially more. If convicted, he's looking at 3 to 5 years in prison. Janet paused. Additionally, our general counsel has advised Mr. Morrison that he has grounds for a substantial civil lawsuit against Marcus. After Janet left, Margaret poured us both scotch from the bottle she kept in her desk drawer. Sarah, this is the smoking gun we didn't even know we were looking for. Marcus didn't just betray you and Tom personally, he committed multiple felonies. His career is over. His freedom is at risk. And financially? She shook her head. He's going to be buried under so many lawsuits and legal fees that bankruptcy is inevitable. The college funds will be fully restored, plus interest and penalties. The judge will order it. And with criminal charges pending, Marcus has zero leverage in settlement negotiations. My phone buzzed. A text from Tom, did you hear about the embezzlement? My lawyer just told me. Sarah, he stole from me to pay for his affair with my wife. I'm suing him for everything he has left. I showed Margaret the text. She nodded approvingly. Good. Multiple legal actions from multiple directions. By the time we're done, Marcus will wish he'd just accepted our settlement terms. The next morning, I received a voicemail from Marcus. His voice was desperate, cracking. Sarah, please. Please call me back. I know what I did was unforgivable, but please, don't let them destroy me like this. I'll give you whatever you want. The house, the money, all of it. I'll sign anything. Just please. I can't go to prison. I can't lose everything. Our kids, Emma and Jake, they need their father. Please, Sarah. I'm begging you. I listened to it 3 times, then deleted it. The man who'd held my hand in high school, who'd promised to love me forever, who'd made me believe in partnership and trust, that man was gone. Maybe he'd never really existed. The man begging on my voicemail was a stranger who'd stolen from children, betrayed friendships, and committed crimes to finance his selfishness. I felt nothing but cold satisfaction. 2 weeks later, the court issued an order for paternity testing immediately after Diane's baby was born. She was due in 4 months, and her lawyers fought the order desperately. The judge's response was devastating. Ms. Morrison, you sent text messages claiming the child is likely Mr. Miller's. You cannot now refuse testing to determine child support obligations. The motion is granted. Diane collapsed in the courtroom, sobbing. Tom sat stone-faced in the gallery, his lawyer taking notes for his custody case. Marcus's attorney filed an emergency motion to delay all proceedings until after the criminal investigation concluded. Margaret opposed it viciously. Your Honor, she argued, Mr. Miller's criminal conduct is directly relevant to this divorce. He stole from his children and his best friend to finance an affair. The court should not reward that behavior by granting delays. The judge agreed. All proceedings will continue on schedule. Mr. Miller, I suggest you prepare for trial. Both criminal and civil. That night, Emma came into my room while I was reviewing legal documents. Mom? Is Dad really going to jail? I set down my papers. Maybe. He made some very serious mistakes with other people's money. Good, she said quietly. He deserves it. Emma. He does, Mom. He stole from me and Jake. From our college funds. For her. The venom in her voice when she said her was palpable. I hope they both lose everything. My 16-year-old daughter had lost her innocence, her trust, her belief that love meant loyalty. And Marcus had done that to her. Whatever happened to him now, he'd earned every consequence. The trial date was set for 6 weeks out. But 3 weeks before we were scheduled to walk into that courtroom, Marcus's lawyer called Margaret with a settlement offer. And the terms they were willing to accept told me everything I needed to know about how completely we destroyed their defense. We'd won before the trial even began. The settlement conference was held in a neutral location, a sterile conference room at the county courthouse with fluorescent lights that made everyone look vaguely ill. Marcus sat at the far end of the table with his lawyer, Richard, who had the defeated posture of a man who knew he was playing a losing hand. Marcus looked worse than I'd ever seen him. He'd lost at least 20 pounds, his suit hung off his frame, and there was a tremor in his hands that hadn't been there before. Dark circles shadowed his eyes. Good. Margaret laid out the settlement terms Marcus was now willing to accept. Asset division, 75% to Sarah, 25% to Marcus. Marital home, Sarah retains 100% ownership, refinanced in her name. College fund reimbursement, full $67,000 plus 10% annual interest equals $73,700. Spousal support, $6,200 per month for 8 years. Child support, $3,800 per month until youngest child turns 21. Retirement accounts, Marcus's 401k split 70/30 in Sarah's favor. Legal fees, Marcus pays 100% of both parties' attorney costs, approximately $95,000. Admission of fault. Marcus signs affidavit admitting adultery and financial misconduct, usable in Tom's civil case. I looked at the numbers. The total value was approximately $1.1 million in assets plus ongoing support. It was everything we'd asked for, and more. Why now? I asked, looking directly at Marcus for the first time. Why are you suddenly so willing to deal? Richard answered. The criminal investigation is moving forward. The DA's office has indicated they plan to file charges for wire fraud and embezzlement. Marcus's financial advisor license has been suspended pending revocation. He has no income and no prospects. This settlement, while unfavorable, allows him to retain enough assets to survive and pay his criminal defense attorney. Plus, Margaret added with a slight smile, the paternity test is scheduled for 1 week after Ms. Morrison gives birth. If that baby is Marcus's, his child support obligations double while his ability to pay remains at zero. Marcus flinched. I'll sign whatever you want, Sarah, he said, his voice hoarse. I just want this to be over. Over? The word came out sharper than I intended. You stole from our children. You betrayed our marriage with my best friend in our home, in our bed, while I was saving lives. You embezzled from your best friend to pay for that affair. And you want it to be over? I know what I did. Do you? I leaned forward. Do you understand that Emma won't speak to you? That Jake has nightmares about whether you ever actually loved us? That I can't sleep in my own bedroom because I see you and Diane every time I close my eyes? Tears streamed down Marcus's face. I'm sorry. God, Sarah, I'm so sorry. Your apologies are worthless. Sign the papers. But Margaret held up a hand. Actually, Sarah, I don't recommend accepting settlement. I want the trial. Everyone stared at her. The settlement is generous, Margaret continued, but a trial puts everything on public record. It sends a message. It ensures that everyone, your children, your community, future partners Marcus might try to deceive, knows exactly what he did. I thought about Emma's rage, Jake's tears, the way my mother had asked about Marcus before she died, confused about why he wasn't visiting anymore. No, I said quietly. I want the trial too. Richard looked at Marcus desperately. You can't afford a trial. The legal fees alone. I don't care what it costs him, I said. I want a judge to hear what he did. I want it in the court record. I want consequences. 3 weeks later, we walked into Judge Patricia Morrison's courtroom for the final hearing. The courtroom was packed. Tom sat in the gallery, along with several of our mutual friends who'd sided with us once the truth came out. My hospital chief of staff was there, showing support. Even some neighbors attended. This case had become notorious in our suburban community. Diane wasn't required to attend, but she came anyway, 7 months pregnant now, sitting in the back row. I didn't look at her. She was already irrelevant to me, a ghost of a friendship that never really existed. Judge Morrison was a stern woman in her 60s with steel-gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. She'd read all the briefs, reviewed all the evidence, watched the nanny cam footage. This is a dissolution of marriage hearing, she began. We'll proceed with witness testimony, then I'll render my decision. Dr. Miller, are you ready? Margaret stood. Yes, Your Honor. We'd like to begin with Exhibit A, the surveillance footage from the Miller residence. The lights dimmed. On the screen mounted on the wall, the footage began to play. I'd seen it before in Margaret's office, but watching it in a packed courtroom, watching Marcus and Diane betray me in my own home while a judge, lawyers, and 24 witnesses observed, was surreal. The kissing. The intimate conversations. The audio where they mocked me. Diane, she's always at that hospital. She doesn't appreciate what she has. Marcus, you make me feel alive. She's just tired all the time. The timestamps showed my night shift schedule with precision. Every encounter happened while I was intubating patients, running codes, saving lives. Marcus kept his eyes on the table, unable to watch. His lawyer looked miserable. When the footage ended, Judge Morrison removed her glasses and cleaned them slowly, a deliberate pause that let the weight of what we'd all witnessed sink in. "Proceed with your next exhibit, Ms. Rivera." Margaret called the forensic accountant to the stand. The forensic accountant, a meticulous man named David Greenspan, took the stand and methodically destroyed what remained of Marcus's credibility. Over 14 months, David testified, adjusting his glasses, Mr. Miller systematically depleted marital assets totaling $153,000. This included $67,000 stolen from his children's college education funds, accounts specifically designated and protected for Emma and Jake Miller's future. He pulled up a chart on the screen showing the parallel timelines, hotel charges on the same days as college fund withdrawals, jewelry purchases within days of emergency savings depletions. In my professional opinion, this represents intentional dissipation of marital assets for the exclusive purpose of funding an extramarital affair. The pattern is unmistakable and, frankly, one of the most egregious cases I've encountered in 23 years as a forensic accountant. Margaret's questioning was surgical. "Mr. Greenspan, in your expert opinion, did Dr. Miller benefit in any way from these expenditures?" "None whatsoever. Every dollar went toward hotels, gifts, trips, and cash withdrawals that exclusively benefited Mr. Miller's affair with Ms. Morrison. And the children's college funds, how does this theft impact their educational futures? At the current cost of higher education, the $67,000 stolen would have covered approximately 2 years of in-state tuition for each child, or 1 year at a private institution. The impact is substantial and irreparable without full reimbursement plus interest." Judge Morrison's expression grew darker with each revelation. Next, Margaret called Janet Whitmore from Pinnacle Investment Group. Her testimony about the embezzlement from Tom's account, $12,000 stolen to fund the affair, added a criminal dimension that made even the court reporter look up in shock. "So Mr. Miller was stealing from his best friend," Judge Morrison said slowly, "to finance an affair with that friend's wife?" "That's correct, Your Honor," Janet confirmed. Finally, I took the stand. Margaret led me through my testimony gently. I described our 18-year marriage, the trust I'd placed in both Marcus and Diane, the night shifts I worked while they betrayed me. "Dr. Miller," Margaret asked, "can you describe the impact this betrayal has had on your children?" My voice caught. "My daughter Emma saw her father's car at Diane's house late at night before I even knew about the affair. She knew, and she carried that burden alone because she didn't want to hurt me. She's 16 years old, and she's lost her ability to trust. My son Jake has nightmares. He asks me if his father ever really loved him, or if we were all just inconvenient." I looked directly at Marcus. He was crying, but I felt nothing. They stole from our children's future to finance their affair. Every dollar that should have gone to Emma's dream of medical school or Jake's education went to hotel rooms and jewelry instead. How do I explain that to them? Cross-examination was brief. Richard tried to suggest my work schedule had contributed to marital problems. "Dr. Miller, you worked 3 to 4 night shifts per week, correct?" "Yes." "Leaving your husband alone frequently?" "I was saving lives," I said evenly. If my husband felt neglected, he could have communicated like an adult. He could have suggested marriage counseling. He could have asked for a divorce. Instead, he chose to commit adultery, steal from our children, and embezzle from his best friend. Those were his choices, counselor. Not mine. The courtroom was silent. After closing arguments, Judge Morrison called a brief recess. 20 minutes later, she returned with her written ruling. "In my 24 years on the family court bench," she began, her voice carrying the weight of authority, "I have presided over hundreds of divorce cases. Many involve infidelity. Some involve financial misconduct. But this case represents something far more egregious." She looked directly at Marcus, who seemed to shrink in his chair. "Mr. Miller, you engaged in a systematic pattern of betrayal that went beyond a simple affair. You conducted an adulterous relationship with your wife's closest friend. You used the marital home, the place where your children lived, where your ailing mother-in-law resided, as a venue for your affair. You stole $67,000 from your own children's education funds. You dissipated $153,000 in marital assets. You committed embezzlement against your best friend and client. Her voice hardened. You showed no remorse until you faced legal consequences. And even now, your apologies ring hollow because they come only after being caught. She put on her glasses and read from her decision. This court finds clear and convincing evidence of adultery and willful dissipation of marital assets. The divorce is granted with a finding of fault. The ruling. Asset division, 75% to Sarah, 25% to Marcus marital home, 100% to Sarah college funds, full reimbursement of $67,000 plus 10% annual interest equals $73,700, due within 90 days spousal support, $6,200 per month for 8 years child support, $3,800 per month until youngest turns 21 Marcus's 401k, 70/30th split favoring Sarah legal fees, Marcus pays 100% of both sides equals $95,000 total immediate payment due, $168,700. Furthermore, Judge Morrison continued, I'm referring this matter to the District Attorney's Office for potential criminal prosecution. The evidence of embezzlement and fraud warrants investigation beyond this civil proceeding. Marcus's head dropped to the table. Mr. Miller, you will have limited supervised visitation with your minor children until such time as they express willingness to see you. Given the emotional harm you've caused, I will not force them into contact they don't want. She turned to me, her expression softening slightly. Dr. Miller, this court recognizes the profound betrayal you've suffered. I hope this judgment provides some measure of justice. You are free to rebuild your life. The gavel fell. It was over. That was 3 years ago. I'm sitting in my new home office now, sunlight streaming through windows that overlook a garden I planted myself, roses, lavender, herbs that bloom in careful rows. This house is smaller than the one Marcus and I shared, but it's mine. Every corner, every memory, every moment within these walls belongs only to me and my children. The first 6 months after the trial were brutal. Healing, I learned, isn't a straight line. Some days I felt strong, empowered, victorious. Other days I'd find one of Diane's old birthday cards tucked in a drawer and I'd sob on my bathroom floor, mourning not just the friendship but the woman I'd been, trusting, open, believing the best in people. Therapy helped. Dr. Patricia Ruiz became my anchor, helping me process not just the betrayal but the guilt I carried, irrational guilt about somehow causing Marcus's choices, about missing the signs, about failing to protect my children from this pain. You didn't fail them, Dr. Ruiz told me during one particularly difficult session. You showed them something far more valuable than a perfect family. You showed them that when someone violates your trust, you fight back. You showed them strength. Emma is 17 now, a senior in high school. She was accepted early decision to Johns Hopkins University for pre-med. When the acceptance letter arrived, she ran into my room screaming with joy, and we cried together, happy tears this time. I'm going to be a doctor like you, Mom, she said, holding the letter like it was made of gold. I'm going to help people. The college fund Marcus stole? Fully restored at $73,700, plus the additional contributions I've been able to make with my promotion salary. Emma's education is secure. So is Jake's. Jake, now 15, struggled more than his sister. He's gentler, more sensitive, and the betrayal cut deeper into his ability to trust. For months, he barely spoke to me, angry at the world, acting out at school. But therapy and time have helped him heal. He made varsity soccer this year, starting midfielder. I attend every game, cheering from the sidelines, and slowly I've watched him come back to himself. His relationship with Marcus is complicated. They have dinner every other week now, Jake's choice, on his terms. Marcus tries, I'll give him that, but the trust is gone. It may never fully return. Emma refuses all contact. I have nothing to say to him, she told the family therapist flatly. He stole from my future. He destroyed our family. I don't care if that makes me harsh. I'm allowed to protect myself. And she's right. She is. Marcus served 18 months in minimum security prison for wire fraud and embezzlement. The criminal trial happened 8 months after our divorce finalized. Tom's civil lawsuit resulted in a $250,000 judgment that Marcus will likely never fully pay. He declared bankruptcy 6 months after his release. He lives in a 1-bedroom apartment across town now, working as a manager at a big-box retail store. His financial advisor license was permanently revoked. His 401k is gone, split in my favor per the divorce decree. Every month, the court-ordered payments come through, spousal support, child support, though I know they're a struggle for him. I don't take pleasure in his suffering. But I don't regret the consequences either. Diane's story is darker. The paternity test, administered 1 week after she gave birth to a baby boy she named Connor, came back with 99.97% certainty. Marcus was the father. She'd been lying the entire time. Tom's divorce was finalized with him receiving primary custody of their 3 older children. Diane has supervised visitation only, twice a month, after a court-ordered alcohol evaluation revealed a serious drinking problem. She lost her marital home, most of her assets, and, most devastatingly, her children's trust. Michael, now 13, refuses to see her at all. Sophie and Grace go to the supervised visits but come home upset each time. She cries the whole time, Sophie told Tom, according to what he shared with me. She says she made mistakes but she loves us. But Grace asked her, if you loved us, why did you break our family? And Diane couldn't answer. Marcus pays child support for Connor, when he can. Diane works part-time at a grocery store, lives in a subsidized apartment, relies on government assistance. The woman who texted me that she always wanted my life ended up with nothing. Our former social circle completely ostracized them both. The holiday gatherings, the beach vacations, the dinner parties, they're now hosted by Tom and me, strange as that sounds. We became friends forged in shared trauma, 2 people who survived the same betrayal. Tom remarried last year, a kind woman named Rachel who teaches elementary school. She's wonderful with his kids, patient with their trauma, and genuinely loves Tom. I stood up as a witness at their small wedding ceremony, and I felt genuine happiness watching him find love again. As for me? 18 months after the divorce, I met David Miller, no relation to Marcus, though the shared last name made me laugh when we first met. He was the attorney who represented Tom in the civil case against Marcus, and we'd worked together peripherally during the legal proceedings. He reached out after everything settled. Coffee, his email read. Just to debrief and make sure you're okay. Professional courtesy. I almost said no. I wasn't sure I'd ever be ready to trust again. But something, maybe intuition, maybe Dr. Ruiz's encouragement, maybe just loneliness, made me say yes. David is 49, divorced 5 years ago, amicable, no kids, and he's everything Marcus wasn't. He's transparent to a fault, communicates obsessively, and understood from day one that I'd been traumatized. He never pushed, never demanded, never made me feel guilty for my walls. We dated for a year before I introduced him to Emma and Jake. Another 6 months before he stayed overnight. He proposed at the 2-year mark, quiet dinner at home, no grand gestures, just honest love. I know what you've survived, he said, holding my hand across my kitchen table. I know you have every reason not to trust anyone ever again. But Sarah, I love you. And I will spend every day proving that love can be safe. That you can believe again. We're getting married next month. Small ceremony, close friends, our kids, Tom and Rachel. Emma will walk me down the aisle, her choice, and it made me cry when she offered. The promotion to head of emergency medicine came 2 years ago, a 35% salary increase and leadership role I'd been working toward for 15 years. The hospital administration told me later that watching me handle my personal crisis with such grace and strength made them certain I was the right person to lead. I use my experience now to mentor other women, both in medicine and outside it. I speak at women's groups about financial abuse, about trusting your instincts, about fighting for justice even when it's painful. Last month, I started a small foundation in my mother's name, the Margaret Miller Fund for Elder Protection. We provide legal assistance to families dealing with financial abuse of elderly relatives. The $73,700 Marcus repaid? I donated half to fund our first year of operations. Mom would have been proud. Sometimes I drive past the old house, the one Marcus and I shared, where the betrayal happened. A new family lives there now. I see kids' bikes on the lawn, a tire swing in the oak tree, Christmas lights in December. It makes me smile. That house was never really mine. It was a stage where I played a role I didn't understand, the trusting wife, the perfect friend, the woman who believed love meant never questioning. This house, the one I bought with my own money and filled with my own choices, is real. I still think about Diane sometimes. Not with rage anymore, anger is exhausting to carry. Mostly I feel a distant pity. She wanted my life so badly that she destroyed her own. And in the end, she got neither. The lessons I've learned are simple but profound. Trust must be earned, not assumed. Even 20 years of friendship doesn't guarantee someone's character. Financial independence is survival. If I hadn't had my career, my income, my own professional identity, recovering from this betrayal would have been infinitely harder. Your children are watching. Emma and Jake saw their mother fight for justice, refuse to be a victim, and rebuild stronger. That matters more than any college fund. Justice isn't revenge, it's truth being heard. I didn't destroy Marcus and Diane. They destroyed themselves. I just made sure there were consequences. Betrayal doesn't mean love is impossible. It means you now know what real love looks like, transparent, honest, safe. Looking back, I'm grateful I fought. Grateful I didn't accept the first settlement offer. Grateful I demanded the trial, the public record, the acknowledgement of what they'd done. Mom taught me to always fight for what's right. And she was right. Justice, even when it comes slowly, even when it's painful to pursue, is the only path to true healing. I'm Dr. Sarah Miller. I save lives for a living. And 3 years ago, I saved my own. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe so you never miss stories of betrayal, revenge, and justice. Hit the notification bell. Next week I'm sharing an even more shocking story about identity theft and an FBI investigation you won't believe. Comment "Justice" below if you believe the truth is always worth fighting for, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. You deserve justice. You deserve truth. And you're stronger than you know.